And we are live, and it's Wellness Wednesday. My name is Dale ECUYER. We are talking probiotics for the brain, and Dr. Shawn Talbott is here. He's the Chief Science Officer of Research and Development and Product Formulator for the Mental Wellness Company. So I know that you all know about probiotics, but there are certain strains of probiotics that Dr. Shawn's going to talk to us about that are specific for things like stress and mood and energy and sleep and, stress resilience and all that good stuff that we're all looking for. So Dr. Shawn, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Dale. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, it's great to have you. So take it away. Like, what is it? Everybody knows about probiotics. So how do you choose one? And how do you know what it's going to do for you?
Yeah, well, everyone knows about probiotics, but no one knows about probiotics because what people think is that probiotics are just this one category of stuff. And they're not, if you ask people what they know about probiotics, they go, well, it's good for me, or, oh, it's good for my gut, or, they're kind of very general about what it's going to do. But the idea around probiotics that I want people to understand is that the benefits are completely strain dependent. So one strain of probiotic bacteria might help you with constipation. Another strain might help you with diarrhea, right? Completely opposite effects because of the strain that you're choosing. Some strains can help with inflammatory balance. Some strains can help with immune system balance. Some can help with lowering stress. Some can help with helping us be more calm. Some can help us with anxiety. Some can help us with depression. Some can help us focus. Some can help us absorb minerals more efficiently. But all of those different benefits aren't just for any probiotic, they're for each of those specific strains. And so as soon as people start to understand that, on the one hand, they'll go, oh, for God's sakes, now I have to find out what strain I need to deliver what benefit. And I say that's exactly right, because the companies that are using the research proven strains will go out of their way to explain this to you and say, here's our strain, this is what it does. And you really need to educate yourself to start looking for that kind of stuff versus what a lot of people do. They go to the grocery store and they stand in front of the probiotic shelf and there's hundreds of choices and they just pick the one that has the most CFUs in it, the colony forming units, which is kind of like the strength of the probiotic. And that's not the right way to choose your probiotic, because that one you chose might not do the thing that you want it to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I've done the same thing, like stood there like, okay, here's a whole refrigerator full of probiotics. And then there's some more on the shelf. Like, I don't know what to
Yeah, exactly. And you just mentioned an interesting point, Dale, is that people will sometimes stand at the refrigerated section, and these are the ones that are really expensive, and they're in the refrigerated special section, so they must be better. Right. And actually, in some cases, those ones, because they have to be refrigerated, they're strains that are very fragile. And if they haven't been kept care of the right way, they might not even be alive when you get them. And so some of the strains are shelf stable. They can survive room temperature. They can survive being in a UPS truck in Arizona in July at 140 degrees, So those kinds of things, the storage conditions, the benefits that they deliver, the amount that you need to give are all dependent on the specific strain that you're talking about. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like people thinking about vitamins, right? You would never go to the store or go online and just buy a box of something that said vitamins on the front of it. You would want to know, well, wait, is this vitamin A that does one thing, or vitamin D that does a whole nother thing, or vitamin C that does a whole nother thing? Probiotics are the same way, and you have to know what strain you're taking.
So what got you involved in all of this? And I know you are, big into the Mental Wellness Company, and you are our man, you are our product researcher and formulator. So what got you, what got your interest in creating this product that really does address the mental aspects of health?
Yeah, well, my main focus as a researcher is to develop things that help people feel better. Right. So I'm a nutritional biochemist. That's what my PhD is in. But I study what sometimes these days is called nutritional psychology. How can we use a nutrient or a diet or something like that to change how people feel? And a lot of the new research around that particular area is focusing on the gut, because the gut is where we make most of our neurotransmitters. Something like 95% of our serotonin is made in our gut, and it's made by the bacteria. Most of our dopamine, 70% or so of our dopamine, the neurotransmitter that helps us be motivated, is made in our gut. And most of our norepinephrine that helps us focus, most of our GABA that helps us relax, et cetera, are all made by the bacteria in our gut. So if I'm trying to study how can I help people feel better in terms of their mood and their energy and their focus and their resilience and all that kind of stuff, if I'm not looking at the gut as a key source of how I improve how people feel, I'm completely missing the boat. You know, and so the research over the last 5 years or so has really been focusing on this idea of, if you want people to feel better here in your brain, you have to look at the gut, which nowadays we call the second brain, because it's making all of these signals that are changing how we feel. So that's what got me interested in it. But then, you know, getting into the nitty gritty of which of these probiotic strains do you actually choose and put into a product so people can get an actual benefit out of it? Like there's one side of it where the science is really interesting, and when we do the research studies, it's really interesting, but how can people plug that into their lives to get the actual benefits? That's where the product development piece comes in.
And then these strains have been clinically proven to do exactly what you say they're meant to do.
Yeah. So in one of the products that we formulated for Amare called Probiotics, that has 3 different strains of bacteria that have all been separately studied in human clinical trials to show that this one strain lowers stress, this other strain lowers anxiety, this other strain lowers depression. And so, you know, each of those is a different slice, if you will, of overall feeling better. You know, if you gave any one person one of those, they would, quote unquote, feel better. If they took the first strain, they'd feel better because their stress was lower, right? And in those studies, stress is lower, but stress hormones are lower. And then neurotransmitters like GABA that help us relax are higher. So just with that one strain, you're getting all those biochemical, physiological benefits around feeling better related to stress. But that's just one piece of it, right? If somebody is not feeling great because they're anxious, that's a different intervention. That's a different strain that does that. If they're not feeling good because they're depressed, that's a different strain that does that. So we took the approach of saying, let's give all 3 of those strains. So if somebody takes all 3 of those, you're going to feel better in a more holistic or more comprehensive way, where someone would maybe say, like, you know, I don't feel better just because my stress is lower, but I feel better because my stress is lower and my anxiety is lower and my mood is higher. I just feel overall better. That's really what we want people to experience.
Wow. That's powerful. So each one in particular can help, but the 3 of them together is like golden, basically.
Right, exactly. And so, you know, it's the idea of choosing the strain is sometimes confusing for people. So, like, you know, I'll put up slides sometimes and I'll show people, look, here's one, Lactobacillus helveticus 52, you know, and I'm able to say that and say Lactobacillus is the genus, Helveticus is the species, and then that number at the end, that's the strain. And most probiotic products on the market, I would say 90% of the products that are out there on the shelf or online, don't even tell you what strain they're using. And so the problem with that is that you'll choose it, but you won't know what benefit it's supposed to be delivering to you. It might be a completely different benefit that you're not even concerned about. You know, so you really have to educate yourself about what are those strains. And that's why, you know, with a product like the one I just mentioned, Probiotics, that one's already got 3 of these validated strains already built right in. So you know you're going to feel better.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've taken probiotics in the past, and again, you know, I was misinformed and looking at that, you know, refrigerated one and thinking those were the best. And I would eat them, but I really didn't feel any difference. So I don't know, were they doing anything for me, you think, or?
Well, they might not have been. There's a lot of probiotics on the market that are completely ineffective because they're using generic strains that might be doing something sort of generally good for your gut, or might be doing nothing at all. And, you know, if you're looking for like a noticeable effect, such as feeling better, I mean, you're going to know it or not. Is it working? Do I feel better? Yes or no? You know? So, you know, another example is, you know, one of the strains that we use in this mental wellness formulation is it's called Lactobacillus rhamnosus 11. So R0011 is the full strain designation, and I use that one as an example because that specific one, Lactobacillus rhamnosus R0011, that's the one that's been shown to lower stress, lower cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone, and increase GABA, the body's primary relaxing neurotransmitter. But there's another strain of Lactobacillus rhamnosus called GG is the strain. So instead of being the strain being R0011, the strain is GG. And that one, I actually recommend that to people all the time because it can help with traveler's diarrhea. So let's say you go on your Mexican vacation and you come back and you've got, you know, a case of traveler's diarrhea. You can go to the grocery store and you can buy Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, and it's gonna alleviate your digestive problems. But it's not going to do anything for your stress and your resilience and your overall ability to relax. That's a completely different effect delivered by a completely different strain. So like that's where the kind of splitting hairs. And the thing that's interesting is that we didn't even know some of this stuff around strain specificity as little as 5 years ago because we didn't have the scientific techniques to really measure at the level of the strains like that. So probiotics have been around for a long time, but this new thinking is really sort of the cutting edge of where probiotics are going in the future.
Amazing. It's so important. Knowledge is power. I always say that. I mean, and I think a lot of people, including myself, have taken like handfuls of supplements and I just didn't really feel any different. So now with this system, you feel different. You just do in so many different areas. Can you talk a little bit about like probiotics in terms of the immune system? Because I know the immune system kind of stems from the gut as well.
Yeah, it does. And that's probably one of the main ways that the bacteria in the gut actually have their effects throughout the entire body. So when I mentioned just a few minutes ago that your bacteria, your microbiome in your gut are producing these neurotransmitters, it's not like, you know, the serotonin is just going to leak out of your gut and then leak into your brain. You know, it doesn't really work that way in the body. What's probably happening is that bacteria is making more serotonin or whatever neurotransmitter we're talking about. And then it's having a signaling effect through the immune system, which then can signal the brain. So that immune system vigilance, you know, that's a nice side benefit of if we get the right level of microbiome, we can get the right production of neurotransmitters, we can get a signal that goes through the immune system to the brain that signals better mood or lower stress or some of the things we've been talking about. But as a side effect of you sending those signals through what we call through the axis portion of the immune system, now your immune system is properly primed. And now your immune system does a better job of what it's supposed to do in the first place, which is protect you from bacteria and viruses and cancer and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, imagine if you could choose the right probiotics that make you feel better at the same time that they're enhancing your immune system function so that you're shielded from becoming sick. Right? That's improving your health in two really important ways simultaneously.
I have to say, I have not been sick, knock on wood. I was not sick all last winter, and I'm assuming I'll stay that way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important because this year, you know, coming into this cold and flu season, you know, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization and all these health organizations are predicting that the flu season is going to be really, really bad. And so like someone like me, I travel like crazy. So I'm doing whatever I can to make sure my gut integrity is good, make sure my immune system is strong. And 70% of your body's immune system lives in your gut. And so if you want to get a good, you know, immune vigilance, you need to be looking at what's going on in your gut. You know, one question I do get a lot, we just barely touched on it when we were talking about, you know, the difference between like the refrigerated ones and the non-refrigerated ones. You know, people ask me that question. They'll say, well, if it's not refrigerated, how do those bacteria stay alive? That is one of those factors that is determined by the strain. Some strains can live perfectly fine at room temperature. Some have to be refrigerated. Some you can almost cook with, you know, because they're so hardy. Same thing with the delivery parameters. You know, some bacteria don't survive the stomach acid very well, and then you have to put them inside of a capsule that will survive the stomach acid, like an acid-resistant capsule, so that that capsule won't release until it gets down into the lower part of your digestive system. So, you know, some of the strains that I formulate with are those kind, and we have to put them in acid-resistant capsules. But other ones will survive stomach acid perfectly well, and we can just put them in a like a powdered product, and people can just consume it that way, and they get the same benefit. So, you know, those are all the little nuances that a lot of people might not be aware of if they're just looking for a probiotic because they read it was good for them.
Right. I have seen that on labels that said, will, you know, get through the stomach or whatever. But yeah, so everything is just made the way it's supposed to be. How your body will absorb it is how you formulate it.
Exactly.
And you know that beforehand, like which strains would and which strains won't.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, from my perspective as a scientist, there are maybe, I don't know, a dozen different bacterial strains that have been studied in humans to help with some aspect of mental wellness, right? Whether it's stress or anxiety or depression or resilience or whatever. But some of those strains, you know, even though they've been shown to be effective in humans, they might not have a very long shelf life. You know, maybe they only live for 2 weeks, you know, so I can't use that in a product that I want to put on the shelf for a year shelf life. Some of them have to be refrigerated. So unless I can ship my products under, you know, cold packs or something, that doesn't work, you know? So there's all those sorts of considerations that you have to say of like, is this product that I'm going to actually try to use myself, you know, is it the right strains? Are they delivered the right way? Are they stored the right way? Do they have the right shelf life? Like those are all important considerations to determine, is that product going to deliver an end benefit for you that you're going to feel? And we've checked all those boxes with the products that we've put out.
So one last question. Can you explain, I don't know if you can, because one of the things that I've noticed so much since I've been taking the system is stress resilience and my stress resilience. So things that would have typically kind of ruffled my feathers, they just kind of roll off of me. So how does that work? What's the science behind that in terms of building stress resilience, which is what I think we all kind of need.
That's the one word that I really love to describe this holistic feeling of wellness, right? So in our studies, we can measure, is somebody feeling better or not, right? That's a measurement that we call global well-being. It's sort of like a quality of life measurement. But then from that, we can slice down into these parameters called subscales, and we can figure out why that person is feeling better. And sometimes in the trials, we'll find that they're feeling overall better because their depression is lower, right? That's one slice of mental wellness. Sometimes it's because their tension is lower. Sometimes it's because their irritability is lower. And there's a whole bunch we can go down through. The more of those that you can stack together, so to speak, that's what leads you to this overall parameter called vigor. And that is very analogous to resilience. So it's not that just that you feel better, that's great, but you feel enough better in all of these different ways that you're just able to roll with whatever happens. You know, there's other ways that we measure it, things called cognitive flexibility that show that not only do you feel better and you can withstand more stress, but people are actually able to have better strategy formation. They're better able to come up with ways to solve this stressful problem. That's a degree of stress resilience. But that's something you would think of as a brain problem. You know, are you stepping into the stress and dealing with it? Or are you stepping away from the stress and saying, I can't deal with this right now, right? Those are two ends of the stress resilience spectrum or continuum, if you will. The more of these subscales that you have in an improved direction, the closer you are to that point of vigor, the more resilience you'll have, the more problem-solving ability you'll have in your brain. But all of those signals are stemming from the gut. And that's the really exciting part of the work these days, is that we're able to change the way the brain is functioning by addressing what's happening in the second brain first. If that makes sense. You know, we're doing something here in the gut and we're getting an outcome here in the brain, which is really exciting for people.
It is exciting. It's super exciting. And I think sleep, that's another aspect of it too, because if you're sleeping better, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you know, my wife is the perfect example of this, right? She's a very, very light sleeper. And, you know, so I've formulated sleep products also, but just these 3 bacteria, right? Just this probiotic approach where you're lowering stress, you're lowering tension, you're lowering anxiety. One of the ways that you're doing that is by increasing the body's natural production of this relaxing neurotransmitter called GABA. You won't make GABA unless you're tense. So when you're feeling tense and anxious, your body makes more GABA and it relaxes you, it calms you down. So my wife started taking this probiotic formulation and started sleeping better. And she's kind of like, what's up with that? Like, what's happening in my gut, why does that have anything at all to do with how I'm sleeping? And when I explained to her, well, you get the right bacteria profile, you make more of this neurotransmitter when you need it, then you're able to relax. Because you're able to relax, you're able to get into those deeper stages of sleep. You get a better night's sleep, all because of something that you did to the bacteria in your gut. I mean, it completely is upending how we think about human health and performance, you know, and how we feel on a regular basis, you know. So that's just one example of how we're able to, you know, deliver a benefit by doing something way down the chain of command, so to speak.
In terms of athletes, and they're always looking for better performance, how does that affect athletes?
Yeah, hugely, because, you know, athletes need to get good sleep. Athletes need to control their stress. Athletes need to modulate their cortisol levels, stress hormone. Immune system signaling that goes from the gut to the brain is going to enable, if you have a more robust immune system, it's going to enable an athlete to not just bounce back from their workouts quicker and repair damage in their physical body quicker, but it's going to give them more shielding against anything that could keep them sick. Like one of the biggest problems with athletes achieving their peak potential is that they train and they don't recover enough, so they don't get the benefits of that. But then they'll train and they'll get sick or they'll get hurt. So, you know, there's so many benefits for athletes in terms of recovery and immune system vigilance and, you know, stress control and things like that. But just think about it also from the perspective of just the level of the gut. If your gut is in a better place, you're going to absorb your nutrients at a higher efficiency. You're going to get more vitamins and minerals and proteins and all that kind of stuff are going to come in as the building blocks to fuel the kind of work that you're doing. So for athletes, I mean, this is, you know, looking at gut health and looking at gut-brain axis optimization is quite frankly a no-brainer.
So it's like we cover the gamut, right? Everyone.
Yeah, well, it's I don't think it's an overstatement to say that a lot of human health, like what we think a healthy human should be, starts in the gut. And, you know, people have been saying that kind of stuff. Hippies were saying that 50 years ago, right? All disease begins in the gut. And we would laugh at them because we didn't have the scientific techniques to actually measure and quantify and modulate this kind of stuff. But now that we do, we kind of have to go back and say, you know what? You were right. You didn't know why you were right, but you were right. And now we can show people, look, this is how we do it. And this is how we do it in a very targeted, almost therapeutic way. It's really, really exciting time.
It is a very exciting time. And I know there's more research coming out in terms of, you know, cancer research and things like that, really. And that is beyond exciting.
Yeah, cancer. I mean, some of these things that we didn't even think we had much hope of curing or preventing. Cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS. I mean, you name it. The future is so exciting.
It is. The future is bright. I love it.